Hello and welcome to the show that keeps you abreast with the local, regional and international business stories. I'm your host, Sigoa. To the highlights, the National Social Security Fund has hit Uganda shillings 20 trillion mark in assets under management. Bank of Uganda raises its key interest rate by 50 basis points. In our interview segment, Mark Arnold Wadulo talks to David Alobo, the founder and CEO Subgroup, on their solar energy investments. On the international scene, policymakers in South Africa are strengthening legislation for the country to be removed from the Financial Action Task Force grey list. For these and more, keep it locked. It's time for business. To the first story, the National Social Security Fund has hit Uganda's shillings 20 trillion in assets under management 1.5 years ahead of schedule. In 2015, the fund launched the 2015-2025 strategic plan with an objective of growing the fund's assets under management to Uganda shillings 20 trillion by 2025. Let's have a look. Uganda's National Savings Scheme, the NSSF, has hit the Uganda shillings 20 trillion mark almost 2 years ahead of schedule. Some of the key drivers that enabled the fund to achieve the milestone are consistent growth in both contributions from both members and income from the fund's investments.
The unwavering focus to deliver our value proposition of safety, convenience and empowerment to our members has propelled the fund to achieve the 20 trillion by end of February 2024, 1.5 years ahead of schedule.
Contributions increased from 688 billion in 2015 to 1.27 trillion in 2020 and hit the 1.72 trillion in 2023. Despite the volatile economic environment over the last decade, income has also consistently increased.
In 2015, we set an audacious goal, and that is to grow the fund from 5.5 trillion shillings to 20 trillion shillings by June 2025. Little did we know that that journey would be filled with potholes and disruptive thorns, a global pandemic that kept us locked for almost 2 years, an unprecedented midterm benefit payout, and a disruptive and intrusive investigation.
In 2015, the fund's income stood at 583.2 billion, but rose to 1.47 trillion by 2020, and in the last financial year, the fund recorded a 2.2 trillion shillings in realized income.
We're now on the brink of a new era, a new day where we aim to redefine what's possible once again. Our next goal, 50 trillion by 2035.
Sigoa for UBC Business. The central bank has raised its key interest rate by 50 basis points at a special meeting called after the shilling fell to an all-time low. The decision by Bank of Uganda to raise the central bank rate to 10% follows 3 meetings where the rate was kept unchanged.
On March 6, 2024, a Special Monetary Policy Committee MPC meeting increased the central bank rate CBR to 10%. The unfolding of some of the risks mentioned in the monetary policy statement of February 2024, which includes the depreciation of the shilling exchange rate, has triggered the need for monetary policy to be tightened. The inflation outturns in February 2024 indicate that both headline and core inflation rose to 3.4% from 2.8% and 2.4% in January 2024, respectively. The MPC raised the CBR by 50 basis points to 10%. The bands on the CBR remain at plus or minus 2 percentage points, and the margins on the CBR for rediscount and bank rates at 3 and 4 percentage points, respectively. As a result, the rediscount and bank rates will rise to 13% and 14%, respectively. Going forward, there are prospects for a higher CBR to bring inflation down and anchor inflation expectations, or lower a CBR if the risks do not materialize.
Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited has launched the Safety for Station campaign at Isimba hydropower plant. The campaign targets their staff at the power plant.
The Safety for Station campaign by UGCL will see staff members and guests at various power generation sites taken through routine drills and awareness initiatives that reinforce a safety culture while on the job.
So from today onwards, we are going to change your key performance indicators to make sure that safety is given equal importance to generation.
Over 90% of accidents that happen at power sites have been identified with falling, being struck by electricity and fire hazards being the lead causes. Therefore, this Safety for Station campaign presents staff with 10 non-negotiable behaviors to address all the potential risk categories.
Some of them were major incidents, like the powerhouse flooding that happened 2 years ago. And we've also lost people here during the construction. So those are some of the incidents, but we've learned our lessons, and we are trying to make sure that we don't repeat the mistakes that led to those unfortunate incidents.
Isimba hydropower plant marked 1,000 days without lost time injuries on 12th November 2023. The campaign finds the company reinforcing its health and safety policy.
But we've always had safety, considerations being given due attention. But now, as we stabilize and going more in operational maintenance, we want to ensure that we have clear guidelines and establish a culture across all our plants that will put safety at the front.
The International Labour Organization Constitution sets forth the principle that workers must be protected from sickness, disease and injury arising from their employment. It has adopted more than 40 standards specifically dealing with occupational safety and health, as well as over 40 codes of practice. Wadulo Mark Arnold for UBC Business.
The Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development has had a successful review of the 5th IMF Extended Credit Facility Program. The 3-year USD 1 billion program was intended to help Uganda's economy recover from the economic shocks of the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's have a look.
The $1 billion interest-free loan was offered by the IMF to government through their special drawing rights facility in 2021 after being approved on June 28th that year.
On the reforms, there are some reforms we are still working within our structural benchmarks, especially strengthening the financial sector, working with our especially social spending institutions to be able to, as well, education, health, to be able to strengthen their capacities to absorb funds. We are working on those reforms because sometimes we give them money and they don't spend it on time, and yet the fund thought that we were the problem. We are not giving them the money.
Over the course of the program, there has been maintenance of macroeconomic stability. Headline inflation has been recorded to decline from a peak of 10% in October 2022 to 3.4% in February this year.
We raised the policy rates by 350 basis points in a space of about 4 months between June and October. As soon as we began to see inflation creeping its ugly head, when the May 2022 inflation numbers came, we had to nip it immediately, so we took strong action, and it paid off.
This financing under the EFC-backed economic program has been crucial in the maintenance of fiscal sustainability. So far, $750 million worth 541.5 million SDR has been disbursed, following the previous 4 reviews of the program.
ECF is lending, and that means correctly, as you noted, other countries lend to Uganda. The interest rate on the ECF loan, as the PS mentioned, is 0%, so it's highly favorable. On the overall disbursement, the numbers that we give in dollars are always ballpark numbers. The IMF lends in SDRs. The total amount of the ECF financing is 770 million SDRs. Each tranche is equivalent to 90.25 million SDRs.
With the successful conclusion of the fifth review, another $120 million will be disbursed in the next few days, which will go a long way in supporting activities in the budget and the economy.
In our corporate news, Umeme U Green Club took its environmental sustainability initiative to Mpigi Primary School in Busika Town Council. The tree planting drive was graced by Professor J.C. Muyingo, the State Minister for Education. State Minister for Higher Education, Professor J.C. Muyingo, says religious, academic institutions and corporate entities must take the lead in promoting planting of trees and environmental protection. Muyingo made the appeal at the Umeme U Green Initiative at Mpigi Primary School in Busika Town Council, Luero District.
I've very good words for the clergy, especially those who have really been able to surrender their land as Church of Uganda Luero has done. I'm calling upon all those who have land, especially the clergy, the religious institutions, to surrender their land to such projects and plant trees.
The tree planting initiative, now in its 8th year, seeks to inspire communities to take action on environmental conservation. Umeme's U Green Club has so far planted thousands of trees in various districts.
As the U Green Club of Umeme, our commitment is to plant 1 million trees in 2024. And this is we are going to do it either in our homes, partnerships like with these ones and other communities and also others. We have a very strong partnership with the Uganda Tree Growers Association, and our aim is to plant 1 million trees with an aim of decarbonating the environment by 1,900 tons of carbon oxide equivalent.
According to the head of communications at Umeme, the time is now for empowering children to adopt environmentally friendly practices to help curb climate change and foster sustainable development.
And when you look at sustainability, it is the youngsters that are going to come after us. So we feel that it's important to inculcate the culture of sustainability and awareness amongst them. And we believe that the young girls and boys that we have talked to here today are going to be a big cornerstone in terms of pushing environmental sustainability for tomorrow's Uganda. So wherever you are, as we have indicated to you, it is important that we plant a tree, that we conserve the environment, and also be mindful of safe usage of electricity.
Small actions like this can have large impacts over time. Uganda has lost at least 42% of its forest cover in the last 100 years. According to the World Resources Institute report, farming is the lead catalyst. In our exclusive interview segment, Mark Arnold Wadulo talks to David Alobo, the founder and CEO Sabo Group, the driving force behind the 22.7 megawatts in Konge solar power plant in Mubende district. Sabo is working with government to add more solar energy to Uganda's generation mix. Let's have a look.
All right, so hello and welcome to another exclusive interview here on the Weekly Business Roundup. We are in a very distant place, not in Kampala, and I'll let my guest enlighten us more on where we are. Hello, sir. Would you kindly introduce yourself, who you are and what you do?
Thank you very much. My name is David Alobo, Dr. David Alobo. I am the founder and CEO, Managing Director of the Sabo Group. We are the owners of the solar power plant here in Kabalasoke, which is the most modern solar power plant in sub-Saharan Africa.
I would love to get to that a little later. Most modern solar power plant in sub-Saharan Africa. That's quite some bragging rights, yeah? But I see the project is quite a big project over here. How many acres is it seated on?
Well, the entire piece of land is 140 acres for 20 megawatts, which translate into 22.7 megawatts peak. And of course, as you might know, the solar modules here automatically follow the sun as it moves from the east to the west. And for that, they need a little bit more space.
In terms of acquisition of land, was it something that you partnered with government or this was a private initiative? How did you go about acquisition of this huge chunk of land?
Unlike the plant in Kabalasoke, which is on leased land, this one was purchased by the Sabo Foundation, the social corporate responsibility arm of the Sabo Group.
So, to develop this piece of this project, financing had to come in through UDB at some point. Would you mind enlightening us on how UDB has helped Sabo to bring up a project like this? Because I'm aware that you're not only partnering with UDB, but you're also partnering with ERA and other electricity players to make sure that you're transmitting electricity or you're contributing to the national power grid. Would you enlighten us more on the scope of this arrangement?
Our mission as the Sabo Group is to power development as a way to pave a path for our people out of poverty and use commercial diplomacy to spur genuine prosperity. This is totally in line with the mission statement of UDB, with the goals and aspirations of UDB. So it was a perfect match right from the beginning. And UDB came in support of our very idea of saying, buy Ugandan, build Ugandan. So we are actually very proud that this plant proves that Ugandan banks, here represented by the Ugandan Development Bank, can actually finance these huge projects.
Well, I must say that quite a number of enterprises find it hard accessing finance through the Uganda Development Bank for one or two reasons or another. How smooth was this on your side, and perhaps, I don't know, how different did you do it?
I think we were riding on the back of the success that we had with the pilot solar power plant, also 20 megawatts, in Kabalasoke, which is the largest solar power plant in Eastern Central Africa. We had proved, even to doubters, that we can do it. And UDB saw in us a competent partner where it also felt comfortable. It could also meet its objectives of bettering the lives of Ugandans by collaborating with the Sabo Group.
So you're saying it was a success of the other power plant, that this also was an easy, smooth ride to get?
I thought it was a catalyst.
It was a catalyst.
A catalyst, yes.
Okay. So in light of Uganda's hybrid energy policy, how does Sabo envision its role in shaping the future of the country's energy landscape, and what challenges and opportunity do you foresee in aligning with this policy?
Our motto is business as unusual. What we have been doing across countries in Africa is to look into investment gaps and then try to fill them using our partners and using our commercial diplomacy capabilities. In Uganda, it happens to be renewable energy. We envision a community in Uganda, a country, an economy that is green in the sense of being renewable, friendly to the environment, with social equity, electricity at equitable prices. And again, I come back to the word commercial diplomacy. We are in the process of deepening and enhancing our contribution to the development of this country by launching regional projects whereby we go into supporting industrial parks. And that would be a huge step in pushing and promoting the industrialization, economic transformation of this country through renewable energies.
I see that your dreams are quite big, and from what I see, you're not only partnering with government, but of course industrial parks. Does your business model revolve around working with large enterprises, or are you also going to think about smaller enterprises or so? Because I'm seeing that not only for power or cooking, we're also seeing the EV industry coming up, the electronic vehicles. Any thoughts on that?
The role of the Sabo Group, and that defines our business philosophy, is what we call the best-in-class architecture. That means we work with global players, global leaders in their areas of cooperation. We are like a music conductor who does not have to play all the instruments himself. Somebody plays the drum, somebody plays the piano, somebody blows the whistle, and as conductors, we simply ensure that the music is nice and everyone enjoys it. This is our business philosophy, and that is exactly what is happening in Uganda. So partners like UDB, partners like Rick Energy Group are this kind of global players.
Mr. David Alobo, ladies and gentlemen, the CEO of Sabo Group, an energy company based here in Uganda. Local, it's just gotten some incentives from UDB to scale up the production of solar energy here in Nkonge. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in for this Business Roundup interview. My name is Wadulo Makanold, and catch you on the next one.
On the continental scene, policymakers in South Africa are making progress in strengthening legislation to meet key requirements of the Financial Action Task Force. FATF put the country on its list in February this year for falling short of certain international standards for the combating of money laundering and other serious financial crimes. We have more from CGTN.
The Financial Action Task Force is an intergovernmental organization that was founded as a G7 initiative to combat money laundering, terrorist financing, and the proliferation of nuclear weapons. Last year, it grey-listed South Africa and Nigeria, the continent's biggest economies, for poor compliance. However, South Africa is cautiously optimistic it will be removed off the list by next year.
What we had to do was firstly change our laws, which we did in 2022. We had 2 acts of parliament, which last year in October, FATF assessed that we had then met 15 of the 20 deficiencies in our legal framework on what's called technical compliance. So in other words, we've only got 5 outstanding on those, and most of those we expect to meet by the end of October this year.
The impacts of being grey-listed can be severe. South Africa, like the other countries listed, are being closely monitored by FATF and will need to show full compliance before being removed from the list.
South Africa's problem is that it's basically got a breach in the system, which is that it doesn't prosecute money laundering as well. There's not enough information about who owns the money, who's the beneficial owners of the money. The regulation isn't strong enough, and the enforcement of regulation especially is not strong enough. Mostly regulatory and financial things around funding for prosecutions or for tracing of criminals, etc., that are involved in illicit funds, and that's what's holding us back.
Compliance involves all stakeholders. Getting everyone on board has been challenging.
In some areas, for instance, law firms not really verifying the background of their international clients, even real estate firms not really putting in strict controls to verify the origins and also the validity of some of those transactions, i.e. proper controls on transactions.
The more difficult aspect is the effectiveness measures. Are we able to implement the laws that we have? And that's where we've been found wanting. And in a way, it's not surprising because many of our institutions were crippled under state capture. They were deliberately weakened, particularly our law enforcement agencies.
To date, South Africa meets 35 out of 40 FATF recommendations. It is a significant improvement from 5 years ago when compliance was below 50%. There's still 17 critical items to action before full compliance. Sumitra Nadu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And so don't wait for people to tell you what to do. Sometimes you need to be assertive. There are people who thought that When I was appointed, they thought, I'll get a choyo. Mama. Are they still asking?
No.
And so when you get an opportunity to serve, sit in that chair, fit in it. If you leave some small space, people will start now pushing you slowly by slowly until when they push you off. So for me, when I'm sitting in my chair, tewali space. Don't leave any space given that opportunity.
KIRO is known as a small fishing village found at the southeastern shores of Lake Albert, and majorly what people in this area do is fishing and salt mining for trade. KIRO Salt Gardens is an amazing and adventurous place. The area is like any other fishing village on Lake Albert, but what distinguishes it is the salt gardens found here. Check this out in our Sounds of Business. There are many applications that come with a smartphone, though others you have to download. There are apps that consume your data and battery in the background without you noticing. My advice is freeze or delete the apps you don't use often and you'll thank me later. Otherwise, thanks for being a loyal audience. Let's catch up next week, same time and place. Bye-bye.